My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life.
Dan, there's a book out there called Die with Zero, and some people have taken on this concept of not wanting to leave an inheritance to anyone, just wanting to have the best quality of life that they could possibly have with the resources and assets that they do have, and die with zero. What are your thoughts about this, and how do you think this should be approached?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Most of the people who come to us are not coming to us with a die with zero approach. Now, some are. We certainly run into a few here and there, but it is definitely not the majority. Now, one of the things that I say in all of my meetings is, if you will commit to a date of death, it is amazing how accurate we can get with when you should claim Social Security, how much you can spend, all these different things, right? And yet I've not had anyone tell me that they would commit to a date of death. I've had a lot of people say they were going to die young or they're going to live a long time or whatever. But in reality, we don't know for sure when you're going to pass away. And so the biggest challenge here is there are a number of variables involved with die with zero, right? I just don't know how long you're going to live. And I don't know how aggressively we can spend early in retirement if I don't know how long you're going to live. So, one of the very best ways that people can deal with the whole die with zero is by annuitizing a certain amount of their resources. So I've saved for retirement. I want to spend as much as I possibly can, but I don't want to leave anything to any heirs. If I annuitize that chunk of money, I'm exchanging it for monthly payments for the rest of my life. So when I die, it goes away, right?
Mhm.
So it will last the rest of my life. So we've taken care of the longevity question. So whether I live to be 80, 90, 100, I'm still going to be getting an income stream from my annuitization. But there's always pros and cons to everything that we do. So if I annuitize, I have given up control.
Mhm.
Now the insurance company is paying me my income stream for the rest of my life. They're taking the risk of longevity, but I don't have the ability to just say, hey, Dan, I need 50 grand in order to buy
Mhm.
a car. I annuitized all my money. I have enough to do income, but I don't have lump sums. So in reality, this idea of die with zero, in most cases, it just doesn't, it's not very practical for most people because you're doing pros and cons. You're going to trade something in exchange for something else. So for most of our clients who are not concerned about leaving money to heirs, and that's just not their primary motivation, in most cases, we still want to retain, we want that longevity protection, but we want to retain flexibility in order for them to maintain the quality of life they want to have. And then in reality, when they pass away, they can leave it to charity.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's good to set an annuity up if you do want that, but still maybe keep some money aside for that flexibility for those things that may pop up that you want to do. And like you said, if anything is left over, give it to charity. So, what about thinking about medical expenses that come up later on in life? We typically see a smile with retirement spending where people are spending a lot of money upfront earlier in retirement when they're young and able to do things. Then it kind of dips off and then goes back up towards the end of their lives due to higher medical expenses. At the end of your life, you're tend to need more medical care. So, how do you make sure that aspect is considered as well when you are planning for this die with zero?
I do hear about that whole smile concept where you spend a lot when you're young and healthy, then it kind of dips and then it increases again when you're dealing with healthcare. In reality, most of our clients just have like an indifferent frown instead of a smile. They tend to spend kind of a flat amount the whole way. But indifferent frown doesn't sound as good as smile. But as far as that goes, again, if you're trying to die with zero, but you're also trying to address as many risks as possible, in many cases, it does make sense to have long-term care insurance, or you're dealing with these risks using outside sources. So I'm transferring my risk over to an insurance company. Yes, I have to pay for that in order to do that. But in order to die with zero, I've addressed the risk. I'm hoping I don't need big chunks of money later on in life. I've got my insurance to cover that risk. I've got my income streams to take care of my monthly quality of life. So you usually will find people with die with zero probably wanting to have more comprehensive insurance to make sure that they're okay for the risks that they might face. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's probably one of my biggest things. Now, for a lot of the people who have the perspective of die with zero, I'm going to tell you that the healthcare thing, all they do is say, hey, when I run out of money, I run out of money and I end up on Medicaid.
Hmm.
So if I'm in a nursing home or if I've just got a lot of care, Medicare will take care of some of that. Then Medicaid, if I'm out of money, Medicaid will cover that. And they just go, I don't really care what happens to me
Hmm.
because, maybe I'm in a nursing home or something like that. And that is a perspective. I mean, it's not like that's wrong. That is
Right.
actually how Medicaid works, is when I run out of money, I go on Medicaid. So, we'll see these different perspectives, but if you want, independence and you want to have dignity, you generally don't want to be on Medicaid if at all possible. You
Hmm.
want to have control over how things are going to work. Like if I want to have a private room versus a shared room, Medicaid's going to tell me what I have to do, where I don't, maybe I want that choice. So again, all of these perspectives, it's a philosophy,
Hmm.
but there's a bunch of trade-offs, there are pros and cons, and this is really where planning comes into play, is how do you align your resources as efficiently as you can to create that, those values and motivations and priorities that you have. And if somebody comes to me with a die with zero mentality, I'm just going to explain, here are the ramifications of the choices you're making, and here are the trade-offs.
Yeah, that's good. What about I saw a big discussion in the FBA group about reverse mortgages. And what if something comes up for this person who wants to die with zero, where they've locked their money into an annuity, maybe they do need more resources? Is a reverse mortgage a solution in this type of situation?
Well, a reverse mortgage fits extremely well with a die with zero mentality, because, I'm, instead of my mortgage getting smaller, my mortgage is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm utilizing my home equity, which for a lot of people is the biggest resource that they have. I'm utilizing my home equity while I'm living in order to have the greatest possible quality of life I can have. And then when I pass away, whatever remaining home equity is in the house, certainly, again, I could leave that to charity, or there are different ways to deal with that. But a reverse mortgage is a great tool for somebody who is talking about dying with zero. Now, remember, once I've used the reverse mortgage, I'm locked into that
Hmm.
process. I'm not really going to get out of it.
Hmm.
And so it's a big decision to make because I've limited my flexibility along the way.
So I hear that flexibility being a recurring theme throughout this whole perspective of die with zero. That is the major trade-off if this is a consideration for you. Dan, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's just really important for people that, whether they're working with a financial advisor or they're doing things on their own, there are a lot of different values and priorities out there. So one person might want to leave a legacy, another person, they want to die with zero. And all of those approaches are okay. They're all
Mhm.
personal to you. It's your values that matter. So if your advisor is not open to talking about the things that you want to do, like if I just said, "Hey, that's just nonsense to have a die with zero mentality," that is clearly not an advisor that you should be working with, because our job is not to impose our values and priorities on the people we're helping. Our job is to help them align their resources as efficiently as they can with what brings them quality of life.
I'm so glad you said that. That is great for our viewers to hear because sometimes people's opinions are so strong that it may deter you from doing what you actually want to do. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Well, thank you for all the information you shared. And until next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.